Hey everybody, how you doing out there? It is Mr. Bookman. I will be reading It's Not About You, Mrs.Turkey by Soraya, Diase, Coffelt, illustrated by Tea Seroya. Please enjoy. It's not about you, Mrs. Turkey. It's not about you, Mrs. Turkey. Dear Mrs. Turkey, Thanksgiving Day is one of the most favorite holidays, of course. You are the star that day in a lot of places in the United States. And you sure do taste great. But a turkey is not a Thanksgiving Day is truly about. Thanksgiving is made up of two words, thanks and giving. And that's what my letter to you explains. I'm a kid who loves to eat. And what's the best day of the year to eat and eat and eat? You guess it, Thanksgiving Day. On that day, a lot of our family members and friends come to our house. From early in the morning until late at night. We eat and eat and eat, and right at the center of the attention is the turkey. My mom rubs some special seasoning on it the night before. Then she wakes up early in the morning and puts it in the oven to bake it slowly. All day we smell it cooking, along with the trimmings of mashed potatoes, yams, gravy, and corn. I think my favorite part is the amazing desserts, pies, sweetbreads, cookies, and a lot of other goodies. You name it, and we probably have to eat that day. I gobbled down so much food that my belly gets so full. Wow. I'm getting hungry right now just thinking about it. I write this letter to you. By the way, did you notice that I write the word gobble just now? That was smart of me, wasn't it? Since a turkey are known for making gobble noises. It's awesome that you provide such yummy food for us to eat, Mrs. Turkey. And from what I just said of our Thanksgiving Day, it certainly seems that the celebration of this wonderful holiday is all about you. But even though you are a very special part that I really enjoy, Thanksgiving isn't all about food. There is much more in this holiday. It's an amazing story, of course, and the faith that I'm going to tell you about. It began many, many years ago, way back around 1600. A group of people named the Pilgrims lived in England. They loved God and wanted to worship Him freely without any restrictions, but instead they were arrested, put in jail, and punished when they worshiped God. So God gave them the idea to move across the Atlantic Ocean to live in the new world where they would be free to pray to God and worship Him. I think that was very brave of them. They left everything they had because of their love for God and their trust in him. And the New World was the name given to what we known as the United States of America. This was long before there were cars or planes, so the Pilgrim had to sail across a huge ocean on a ship. It wasn't easy, but they escaped England on a ship named the Mayflower. In all, there were about 102 pilgrims that made the trip. And guess what? There were 32 kids on the ship too. Kids were very important to God and their mom and dad, so they weren't left behind.
Talk to you about something. How did you meet my mom? I know you said you were in Providence.
Yeah.
The ship sailed from England in the late part of the summer in 1620. It was a very, very long ship over the Atlantic Ocean, and the weather was bad for much of it. The seas were tough and the winds were strong, and the waves crashed against the ship. Many people got sick, but they didn't turn back. They knew God wanted them to come to America, and they believed that He would protect them. On the ship, the Pilgrims got together and made an agreement called the Mayflower Compact. The compact explained that they were traveling to America for the glory of God, and because they were Christians, it said that they planned to accomplish a colony where people could live for God and worship Him freely. Now that they wouldn't have to be afraid anymore to go to church or talk and sing about God. As part of the compact, they agreed to treat each other equally and elect leaders who were godly men.
So started with Philip Solitaire. Started with expertise. Started feeling they don't want to start. Start your day with a thorough.
On a cold November morning in 1620, the ship landed at what is called Cape Cod in the state of Massachusetts. Do you know where Massachusetts is, Mrs. Turkey? If you look at the map of the United States, you'll find it in the northeast part of the country, bordering the Atlantic Ocean. On the first Sunday that they were in America, the Pilgrims spent the day praying and thanking God for the safety voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. At that time, the Indians were living in the New World. They had many different tribes and cities already accomplished. They were great hunters, fishermen, and gatherers. They were also good farmers and grew a lot of plants for food. One of the vegetables they grew was corn. This was something new to the Pilgrims. I'm sure do you like to eat corn on the cob with a lot of butter? Yummy, yummy. When the Pilgrims arrived in New World, they didn't know that there were Indians nearby. The Indian nation in that area was named Wampanoag. When some of the Pilgrim men got off the ship to explore, they found the new Indian homes and a lot of corn, but the Indians hid from them. The Pilgrims searched for a good place to build their homes, but they didn't stay at the first area. They got back on their ship and sailed further around until they came to an area that is called Plymouth Harbor. Like it there because it was a brook with fresh water and high hills where that they could keep a good lookout for anyone who might want to hurt them. This was to their new homes. They named the town Plymouth, but the Pilgrims were about to find out that their journey to accomplish a new home was really just begun. The first winter was very cold. Their food supplies, which they had brought with them, were getting really low. Some of the Pilgrims got sick and died. It was a very hard time for them. When spring finally came, an Indian named Sam Most walked into their town. He spoke good English because he had lived with several Englishmen who had come to fish near his home. The Pilgrims were very surprised to see him and welcomed him. Soon, Samos came back and brought another Indian with him named Sac Quanto. Sac Quanto spoke very good English too. He taught the Pilgrims how to fish, farm and land, and hunt for deer and turkey. It was all very different for the Pilgrims in this new land than their homeland that they had left. The Pilgrims and Indians were very different also. I'm sure the Indians thought the Pilgrims wore funny looking clothes and hats, although I bet the Pilgrims didn't think that their clothes looked funny. The Pilgrim men usually wore shirts with ruffles, pants to their knees, and high-top boots. When they attended church, the Pilgrims men wore black clothes and black hats that were tall and thin. The ladies usually wore bonnets on their heads and long dresses with aprons down to their ankles. If how the Pilgrims dressed looked funny to the Indians, I'm sure the Pilgrims thought the Indians wore funny clothes too. But the Indians probably didn't think their clothes were funny either. They wore clothes made out of animal skin and fur. They also wore jewelry made out of shells and beads, and painted their skin with all sorts of different colors and designs. Swatano introduced the Wampanoag Indians to the Pilgrims. The two groups made a peace treaty in which they agreed to help each other. Even though the Indian and Pilgrims were so different, they worked together and helped one another. In the fall of 1621, the Pilgrims celebrated their first Thanksgiving, and it actually lasted about 3 days. They thanked God for all they had, even though the past winter had been very cold. They were happy that they had made it through. Most of them were healthy. Their new towns were growing. God had kept them safe and given the Indians as friends. They loved the Indians and the Indians loved them. The Pilgrims and Indians shared what they had for food, like wild turkeys, corn, pumpkin. They played games, danced together, and they had lots of fun. Many years later, in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln made a Thanksgiving proclamation that he said that he wanted all Americans to set apart the last Thursday in the month of November every year as a day of Thanksgiving and praise to God that all that He had done for us and for all that He had given us. President Lincoln said that it was important that we never forgive from where all our blessings came. So that, Mrs. Turkey, is the true meaning of Thanksgiving Day. It is the day in which we remember the past and the present and give thanks to the true God. It reminds us that we should always put Him first. So while I love you, Miss Turkey, it's important to understand that Thanksgiving really isn't about you after all, but that's okay. I will enjoy your part of the celebration and remember that God for His provision as I eat and eat and eat. Love me. Yeah. You got to learn about Thanksgiving, huh? Well, everybody, I hope all of you enjoyed this book reading. And if you did, can you give it a thumbs up? Smash that thumbs up button. Can you do that? If you're new and you came along this book reading, can you hit that red subscribe button down below and subscribe to my channel? But until my next book reading, they call me Mr. Bookman, and this book reading's over. Have a good one. Take care.